Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast, a virtual firehouse kitchen table with Matt, Adam, Brian, Doug, and Freddie, where they discuss everything that matters in today's fire service. Now let's get to the show.
But when I saw y'all buy that hat at FDIC, and then who bought the one for Matt? Who bought it? Was it you, Adam, or Doug?
Adam did.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and then got
Doug
it.
and Matt. Brian, whatever. Freddie.
I called you the wrong name, and I got yelled at. You just did it, and it's like, I'm sorry, I got a runny nose.
I'm sick.
Okay.
Matt and Freddie, I bought hats.
So I wish I would have got it. I wish I would have bought one because I think that they're fantastic. Anyways, what's up, y'all? Welcome to the Cool Fireman Podcast. We got 4 out of the 5 tonight. How cool is this? We're episode 104, right?
104. Yes.
104. And almost everybody, if you're not watching on Spotify, they're wearing their Make Firehouses Great Again hat that they got at FDIC. And Matt has his March Burn Box shirt on. Doug's sporting the West Broad shirt. I'm sporting the Kelly FDIC, the Side Hustle shirt. And I don't know what Adam's sporting over there. Oh, Captain City. There you go. Capital City.
Brian, I don't mean to put you on the spot here, but have you listened to it's tomorrow's Friday. Sorry.
Yeah. Go I haven't listened to the Burn Box episode, obviously, because we're recording before then. So I missed it, but the reels were cracking me up. I mean, the tuna fish part that Tom had, I just got to say, I know I wasn't on that episode, but man, we just had so much fun, like just hanging out as that little motley crew at dinners and just really had a really good time. So anyways, thank you guys for jumping in on this episode. This is going to be one that, as the fire marshal in me, I wanted to discuss some stuff, and actually Matt threw it out there and I was like, yep, I'll host. I got some out of the box questions that I want some input in that I used to do around the firehouse kitchen table at my old station. And I haven't done it at my new station yet, but I will. And so I wanted to get y'all's perspective from around the country and how you look at it. And so we'll go from there. But first, we got to do our housekeeping like always. So special thanks to Unkie. Even though he's sick, thank you for being our sponsor. We appreciate it.
I had a ribeye tonight with buttery rosemary on it.
Love it. I'm cooking this weekend Cajun chicken sloppy joes. You may have seen that around the internet. Yeah. But yes, I'm going to be making one of those. I sent that to Adam. So that's... If you're following me, either go back and look at it, because I'll probably have posted it by then, but it's going to be done on the Blackstone griddle.
I also smoked leg quarters Tuesday night at the fire station, covered in Chipotle, Unkie's Chipotle. Yeah,
I saw that. How is it on chicken?
It's great. I mean, it's top 10% right there. It says it in the back.
Top 10%. It's top 10.
I
Make leg quarters great again. I don't think that fit on a hat, but...
The math is mathing.
The math is mathing. So super cool with that. And, we just talked about Tom, but got to love the burn box. I got an email. FD Collectors Club is en route. I'm excited about those challenge coins. I love it because my collectors clubs are on my desk.
I got mine last week.
If one of my kids has put that bag somewhere and I
already got mine. So that means, because I'm typically last.
Somebody has laid it down. I was going to say, I got
Chicago
the email.
One. And
Connecticut.
I gotta find it. Somebody's probably laid it down in here. I was gonna say I got the email saying that it's on the way.
If you want to see them?
I always want to see it.
I'll show you. You show me yours, I'll show you mine.
Fucking prove it right now.
Okay, here we go.
I ain't scared.
So
that's not what I was referring to.
I know what you're referring to, but this is a family show.
So
we happen to say fuck a lot of.
Just
this is why we have the E, not for educational, beside our podcast name.
No, it's called explicit, Brian.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Killing me small. So while they're getting all that pulled out, right before the show came on, I want to give an apology. A couple episodes back, I said I wasn't going to mention this, but I will. We got in the rush and forgot to give it a moment of silence. That was not in vain. It just happens sometimes like that. So apologize for that, but we always are reverent to that. I know it is something that we take very seriously. And so when we say that we mean it, we mean it. And so it was just sheer accident, but either way, we want to do that tonight. Now, are you guys good? We're going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll share the coins thereafter.
You're just amazing. You're amazing to me.
Why?
Because we said, we talked about that we had done it, and then you're like, oh, well, we're not going to say that on the air. But you're just so honest, and like you just have to get it off your chest.
I do. I felt bad. I felt
Abe
bad
Lincoln.
because it is honest, Abe. I just can't help it. So.
She was like Abe Lincoln.
East Coast Lincoln.
East Coast Lincoln. I love it. All right. This is for those that we may have lost this week. Amen.
Well said.
Yeah, well said from East Coast Lincoln. I like that.
Oh.
Put that on a
Excuse me
shirt.
while I whip this out.
There you go. All right, Doug, let's see it.
That a girl.
This is
So Doug's showing us his patches.
from Chicago. Look at the back of this thing, dude.
Yeah, that pirate is super cool.
Golly.
It says diamond in the rough. And then
And we just got done putting together a station shirt for one of our stations, and it has a pirate on it because it's pretty cool.
And this one is from Hartford, Connecticut.
Very nice.
Oh, a tactical.
And it's like neoprene or something.
Hartford Fire Department.
It's a different feel.
It's definitely a different feel. And
Score. I got to figure out where mine
the
is.
back of it's really cool.
It better not.
Or it could be the front. Whatever.
Yeah. Godly. Because I usually get mine a day later than Doug, but like 2 days before Matt.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Here in God's country.
One last thing to add to the housekeeping is if you're not following us, please hit that follow button. We're doing really good. We're almost to 700 on Spotify and cruising along on YouTube. So anywhere that you listen, just hit that subscribe button. Our analytics are still showing that there's a fair amount of people that listen to a lot of our podcast episodes, but they're not following. So it helps us out. That and making comments.
That's what I was going to suggest is if you don't do anything, go subscribe on YouTube and drop comments wherever you listen and on YouTube. And the only reason why I say that is because that helps push us at no cost to us. So please, please, please do that because that's just a way to help us. Matt's showing the love.
Yes.
So
My
super
doesn't
cool.
do that. Sorry.
Yeah, mine doesn't either. I don't understand.
You don't have enough cores.
I don't know what cores is, but okay. Hey, Matt, sidebar. Evan Williams Bottle and Bond. It's always available. It's $20 a fifth. It is amazing.
Okay, $20. For
$20. Yeah, for a fifth. Yeah, it's $19.
Wow. Okay, we'll try that.
If I drank, I'd say that's a good deal, but I don't drink, so that would be like $20.
And you can always find it. You ain't gotta hustle and try to find it. Whatever. Anyway, moving on.
Yeah.
So this week's topic, we want to talk about public education. If you remember way back in October, we had Miss Maria Bostian on, and we kind of talked a little bit about CRR. It was a special episode, but we've never collectively talked about it. And so Matt, when we were talking about topics, that was dropped. Doug mentioned that they had a fire recently that was started by a candle. And I said, I know how we're going to push this conversation along. So Doug, kind of paint the picture of your fire. And then what I'd like to do is kind of just lead off with some questions.
Okay. Are you going to leave?
No, you missed the first part of that. Man, what a terrible cue. I try to segue all the time, and the segue didn't work.
I'm gonna tell you
1, 2, 3, go.
I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna stop doing. You're gonna stop raising your fucking voice at me. That's what you was doing. There's gonna be some furniture moving in this motherfucker.
I said,
flip a table. Flip a table. Flip it.
This episode is not family friendly.
Flip a table. Flip it.
What he totally missed what I said.
Flip a table.
What I said was, hey, how about tell us about the fire, and then I'll ask some questions. And I said, ready? I was like, hey, go.
Right, it was 2 days. I think it was A shift. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was A shift. It could have been C shift. I don't remember. Either way, it was within 3 days ago. This structure fire came out, and then they actually posted about it. I think I shared it. I'm not sure if I did it. Anyway, long story short, it was determined to be caused by a candle. It was just a room and contents bedroom fire. But it was determined to be caused by a candle that was too close to some other flammable items. What's your follow-up question, dummy?
Yeah, well, I'm ready.
My follow-up question. I mean, anything can be flammable, right, Brian?
Sure.
Sure.
According to Fire Marshal Bill,
everything has an auto ignition temperature, even metals.
Fire Marshal
right?
Lincoln. Our PR, I forget, PIO, I would say PR, public relations, whatever, put on there that obviously candles, everybody uses candles. I shouldn't say everybody. A lot of people use candles. Candles are very popular, especially around my house. My wife likes all that smelly stuff, but it very well could have been too close to curtains. I mean, if it's in the container it comes in, like it's got to be close to something that's hanging over it. You know what I mean? So I don't know if that's what it was. Being a bedroom, it could have been right on a nightstand, right by it could have been a lampshade. I mean, who knows? I don't know the complete details, but I mean, you want to talk public education? That's a perfect scenario to educate the public of, look, man, I know people like their candles, but we just came out of space heater season. It's the same kind of thing.
Well, there was a type of candle, didn't that a certain company carried that they would get so hot the candle would the glass would shatter.
Holy cow!
Yes,
there you go, Marshal.
So
I ran one of those years ago, but I didn't know it was a certain brand.
A lot of that it was the brand because it was tied to the wick. The wick wasn't the right type. Well, they weren't the proper
like a tuna
material. Yeah, no, it wasn't that. It was.
Understand that.
Yes, depending on when you listen and what episode. But a lot of that has to do with how the wick was made and the actual materials that the candle was put in. Where I wanted to go with it was not specific to this, but when you have a unique, right, or a situation, most people think that the fire will not occur to them, right? When I go on news media outlets or talk radio or whatever, and I talk fire safety, I always give the analogy that when I was county fire marshal, I probably worked 300 to 400-ish fires during that time of causes. And I never once had anybody come up to me and say, hey, I knew this was going to happen today. And even the ones that knew it were criminals, right? So on the accidental fires that I had, they were always looking for closure, but they never knew the why. And so what we had to do was bring this was not supposed to happen to me and the why together for the change behavior, right? So when you look at that, you've got to, like to Doug's point is saying, hey, that's public education. But you have to think outside the box, right? And some of the best people that I have found, right, is to go down to the firehouse kitchen table and get my fire crews to help me think outside the box. These are the same people that can take a car upside down, smash it into a million pieces in less than 15 minutes, figure out how to unconflagrate it and get the person out and find them better than they found them, right? So if I have a problem of making somebody believe that it could happen to them and find solutions to make it not happen to them, it's the firefighters around the kitchen table. That's not an ego stroke. It's just great minds thinking together, right? So that's kind of the pivotal point of what I want to come to, right? For the person that buys all the candles that thinks it's never going to happen to them, right? And the cat or dog knocks it over or whatever those scenarios. How do we get people to think differently about public education, including the firefighters around the kitchen table, right? That's because the mentality is that they'll say, oh, that's a one-off. We're not going to run that call again. Yet if you go back in your career, 20, 30 years, you think, how many candle fires have I been on, right? For the old salty fireman, they may say, well, I ran 10. That was 10 families that lives were forever changed. Could you make that impact? So I before we get into that, I want to give you an example of kind of that firehouse kitchen table mentality and how my mindset was changed. How did I have a mindset change? So I was going around to the firehouses. I was meeting with my crews as fire marshal, as battalion chief, and I sat down with them and I had my ones and zeros spreadsheet. And we were talking about things like false alarms, like fire alarms, right? How do we minimize our calls on false alarms? How do we reduce the number of kitchen fires? Because that's a high impact, right? So there's cost associated with both of those, whether it's false alarms that are nothing that cost us money or the impacts to the community and dollar loss on kitchen fires. And one of my lieutenants that I actually taught in Firefighter 1 and 2 said, you know what, Chief? I tell you what I'm tired of doing, and it's probably not a high number on your spreadsheet, is I'm tired of running the meth heads getting hit when they come into walking into traffic. He said, because I am tired of responding to those calls and seeing those faces of those people busted wide open. He said, that's probably not a real high number on your spreadsheet, is it? And I was like, I don't think it is. He said, but I'm telling you, every time I run past that intersection, I think about the people that were mangled up in pieces because they walked out in front of a car. And I was like, that is a life, right? And that life is worth more than that kitchen fire that, yes, it did damage, but it didn't take a life. And it's darn sure not as impactful as all those false alarms. So it made me change my perspective, right? And I know that there's a lot of different people that have a lot of different perspectives about meth heads and all this other stuff, right? But it's still a life. That life, take a meth head and say it's a 5-year-old kid, right? It is impactful. And the why of why they do that matters. So there's lots of different pieces that we evaluate, right? The who it is, the why it is, the where it is, the cost that's associated with that. So once I do that, I always ask, all right, now how do we fix it? And we would be surprised once we come up with a problem, how quickly we can look for solutions and the multiple different things. So prime example, if I said we run illegal burns, right? Unlawful burns where people are burning leaves in a fire pit. One person can't afford the trash bill. The other person just may not know. So how do we solve that problem in a rich community and in a poor community? And you'd be surprised how the firefighters come up with 10 different ways to solve the same problem in 2 different socioeconomical climates. And it's genius. Man, the way that we figure that stuff out is beautiful. But the way we combat it, same problem, 10 different solutions, all because of that. So that's really what I wanted us to talk about tonight is how do we look at some of that stuff? So what do y'all think? You've got in your district, give me your top calls. And what are some of the ways that you think, just here off the cuff, what are some of the ways you can do it? Lift assist. All right. I knew that was going to come up.
I'm kidding.
Or falls. How about falls? Right.
We could dispatch a lot of falls.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
People are going to fall.
You're going to
People
go.
get old, you know?
You're going to go.
Yeah. What are you going to do?
Is that the answer? You just throw your hands up?
That's a terrible rebuttal question.
Yeah, you can't
because
you can't use false.
What I mean is people get old, people are going to fall. Like there's no community risk reduction in falls, in my opinion.
There is.
Okay,
there
so what are you going to do? You're going to create a PSA for people to put up handrails on the side of all over their house. So
how
about night
doors and no small dogs and
night lights?
Night lights.
No.
What? So
I mean, even triggered me. Yeah. I got triggered. I got triggered, motherfucker.
I guess
when you started talking about candles, because people are gonna be like, "What are you gonna do? Not use candles? I love candles. I love the way that my vanilla candles smell, assholes. Like, what are you gonna say?"
Brian, I'll tell you one thing, Brian. We do on, I'm gonna say probably 90%, maybe more of our EMS calls or any call for service. We check smoke detectors. Once the situation's under control, unless it's a critical patient, we're going to check the smoke detectors in the house on first floors, every living area. You know what I mean? Every living level, rather. So that's one thing we do that helps with that.
So let's talk about the elephant in the room: prevention versus operations. If anybody in prevention thinks that you're going to get to 0 responses on any type of incidents, they're dead wrong, and they're living in a fairy tale world, right? Absolutely. In the prevention side. It's not going to happen. So people will fall, right? Candles will continue to burn stuff, right? There's certain things that are still going to happen no matter what. My question is, to kind of Matt's point, like he said, hey, can you send out a PSA that says install these things? The first question before you can ever send that PSA is, how are people falling? Like you can't tell an old person, sit down and don't move. That's not healthy either, right? So you have to ask yourself, like
the government did during COVID.
What?
Oh, damn. He said that.
So I would go back and say, why are people falling, right? And what the best practices in our world has said is that it's because they don't see, they don't have things well lit, they trip over rugs, things like that. So again, you're not going to stop everyone from falling. Maybe they don't have enough help to help them get up or down or whatever, right? They got to hit their little magic button. Or maybe they just want to see somebody. So they maybe fall on purpose, right?
Yeah, I would. Yeah, they call on purpose because they're lonely. They want a little attention. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
I've definitely.
And you're not going to stop those.
I got you one. Create a senior center like we have in our city, and these elderly people can call the senior center. They come out and give them the attention that they need, or help them around the house. And do things that they wouldn't have to do normally if someone was to help them. Then they wouldn't be falling as much because they wouldn't have to get up and move around as much. But again, that goes back to what you originally said. It's like, I want these people moving around as much as they can, because it's going to lengthen their life at the end of the day, in my opinion.
So what is the greater demand on services? The 4-man engine company rolling to that person's house, or the single CNA in the home that's providing them assistance and companionship?
Yes,
right?
The single for sure.
Okay.
And we just talked about this too, just to add on. I know you want to talk longer, but we have ambulance operators in our city now that are owned by the fire department. And so we're like, well, why don't we just send the ambulance up to help, there's 2 ambulance strapping young 21-year-olds to go help grandma off the ground. And then, you guys just don't want to go up there and okay. There's always the back and forth.
Risk. What did we talk about in Indy, guys? We talked about risk, probability, frequency, and cost. For the white shirt mafia, that's what we do all the time. We evaluate those 4 things. It's not about the fact that we don't want to send the 4 guys on the engine company. It's because risk, frequency, probability, and cost says that if I take those 4 guys and I put them on that lift assist and a fire pops off and there's somebody trapped, I don't need you on that lift assist. I need you ready to respond to that structure fire. Because last time I checked, there's 2 people to go to the medical call, or 2 types of units. There's only 1 to go to that fire. Yeah. So my best is to put the medical on the medical. And then if a fire breaks out or another medical, I've got a backup. If I put everything on the medical, I have nothing for the fire. Yeah. Right. And so that's why I said, something as simple as a fall. Yeah, it's like people are going to fall, but we still need to have a backup, and we need to reduce it, even if it's not us, that has the solution, right? That one person that's the CNA, that's not a fire department problem, right? But it is our role to advocate and talk about all those 4 reasons why it shouldn't be us, right? That's where I go back and say, if I get the firefighters' minds together, y'all can give me a million reasons, a million swords, a million daggers to go down the hallway and say how it's not our problem. Does that make sense?
We went to Game of Thrones all of a sudden.
we did. But I love that, because education is not just for the public. It's for other external stakeholders that can help us reduce those calls. Right?
Yeah, sure.
And that's where I wanted us to talk about it tonight, was because sometimes, education is not just for the citizen, it's for other stakeholders. And says, this is your problem just as much, if not more than us. So, all right. So what are, like, other than lift assist, think about some of those other unique calls that you have, like wildfire. Matt, what is some of the things that y'all do that's unique? I mean, you guys have ordinances that says you will do this, that, and the other, but besides actual physical enforcement where someone comes out and writes a ticket, is there anything that y'all do that's unique out in California, whether it's community events to go clean? I remember us talking about something a while back about hazard mitigation, where the town will spend money to mitigate certain things.
Well, I could speak to wildland consults that we do. A resident can call Fire Prevention Bureau and say, hey, I want you to come out and give me a consult, around my property, make sure that I'm fire safe. 99.9% of the time, it ends up being someone that wants to complain about their neighbor's tree, which is fine, which is totally fine. It is what it is. But that's one thing that we do. But I would venture to guess that a lot of municipal, maybe not rural, but municipal fire departments that work in cities, they all do everything. Someone has a water leak, who do they call? The fire department. Yeah. If there's wires down, they don't call Edison Power Company. They call the fire department to investigate it, and then we call Edison to come out and fix it, or Cox Communications, whoever it is. I think that we all do that. I think that, please, like, if you're listening to this right now and you think A, I'm wrong, or B, you agree, let us know, because that's my opinion. I think that fire department is all risk, and it's all everything. Hey, I have a problem.
It's definitely all hazard.
That was the term I was using. I think most all departments are all hazards at this point.
Yeah. I mean, who do we call? I don't know. Call 911. The fire department will come out here and help me. They'll know what to do.
Yeah.
And you're going out on a sewer leak, and you're like, wait, I'm a fireman. Like, what, you want me to tell you that you have sewage coming out of your drains? Like, what? Call the city, call Public Works, call a plumber, for large sake. If it's not on city property, that's your responsibility. you pooed too many times and probably used flushable, which is not flushable, wipes down your 1.5 inch tubes that were built in 1920.
Get a bidet.
Yeah, right. So, when it comes to that stuff, Brian, like, what do we do as far as like outside the box? We do everything. And we talk about that on the way to a call. We'll be driving there like, what are we going to do? Like, we're just going to get there and say, well, yep, you got shit coming out of your drains,
But at the same time, that is an educational opportunity. So anytime we go on those, I don't want to call them nuisance calls, but the non-standard, the non-typical calls, is we try to use those water issues, for instance, like when we have bursting pipes in the winter. We educate people on, look, here's where your shutoff is. It's usually right inside your crawl space, or in your garage. We use those things. Here's your gas meter. This is how, if something happens, this is how you can shut your own gas off to mitigate, whatever. We use all those opportunities as we can to educate in any way.
Yeah. Again, you're not. Yeah.
No,
I agree.
You're right. You're not going to stop it. But
you're not.
If I tell Joe Schmuckatelli how to turn his water off at his house, well, maybe the next time he's at his cousin's house, he's like, hey man, the fire department came up, man. They told me, you know how to cut your water off? They showed me how to do it. Here's how to do it.
Yeah.
So now you've helped. You know what I mean? That's the angle I look at it.
One thing that I love that Doug said was that they check fire or smoke detectors. We do that too.
We have
we have a lot of old people, and I would say about 8 years ago, we started a program where we bought like thousands of smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors. And if we walked into an elderly person's house that normally couldn't, climb up a ladder or whatever, we're going to bring them and do it for them. And people can even call and say, hey, I don't think these are working. Those things save lives.
Yeah, we get those calls frequently. I'm sorry, Matt, go ahead.
No, you're good. I was just going to say, I think there's like a 0% chance of somebody dying as long as they can walk and get out of their house. If a smoke detector goes off, there's a fire in their house, which is critical. So
all of our units have a little, either an ammo can or something with their smoke detector kit, and there's usually 2 to 4 of them in there because we'll put one on every living level if you don't have working ones. And we give them a card that says this is a temporary solution because it's battery powered. You need to either replace these at some point or whatever. And we even do smoke detector blitz, as we call them, in some of our cluster home neighborhoods where they will provide their own batteries, and every 6 months we will take 3 or 4 units and go to that community and replace all their batteries for them. But we have a box on our infrared report that says where the smoke detectors checked, and then how many you checked, and then how many you installed, and that kind of thing. And yes, people can call us. We have an online system now where they do it remotely, and it comes to whatever fire station their address is in, and we schedule a time to go install smoke detectors for them.
Yeah. So I love all that. And Matt, to your point, I have a scenario that played out for me about.
There's a butt coming. No, there's a butt coming.
Well, there was, of those 400 fires, I would work on average 1 to 2 fire fatalities a year on average. And I went to a fire fatality where we had done a smoke alarm canvassing. And Doug, I kept quiet because I felt like that's what you were going to do. We had done a smoke alarm canvassing project tied with the American Red Cross, and a man died in a home where we put smoke alarms. And can't tell you whether
shocking.
It should be shocking. And it was a gut check for me. So I landed. I had went down and done pre-conference, a pre-con on an engine. And we had been up to almost 1 o'clock every night. My boss called me. He's like, hey, this fire fatality up the road. Can you go handle it? I'm like, golly, I don't want to go deal with it, but I did. And it was right up the road from my house in my Valley district. I wasn't on the volunteer fire department then because I was county fire marshal, but I rode up there to it. And the man's head was about 6 inches from the door when we found him. They couldn't find him. Like they're like, he's in here somewhere. And I'm like, shine the light. And I had worked enough fire fatalities. I could look for teeth, eye sockets, bones. I knew what they looked for. And this was a mobile home, and it was pretty burnt. I was like, yep, he's right there. So, anyways, within, I don't know how long we found out that that's what it was. The issue with it was that.
So you said you found out what it was, that the detector wasn't working?
No, we found out that it was one that we had canvassed and that we had done alarms in that home. A family member said, I don't understand why he didn't get out. Red Cross came and put alarms in his home in January. And I said, do what? And so as part of my investigation, I found out that was the day we did a Martin Luther King Make a Difference Day canvas. We installed over 400 alarms that day countywide. And that home we had smoke alarms in that home. And the only thing that I could think of, kind of to Matt's point, was he was trying to get out. And he, was overcome by smoke.
I can't tell you how many we checked that people have taken the batteries out of.
Sure. And again,
you're never going to stop some people from doing that.
100%. And it's that out of the box thinking that I kind of want to talk about. And I debated on whether or not telling the story, but y'all kind of played through exactly where my mind was going. But there was a state, and I don't remember which state it was now. It was a Midwestern state. I think it was Oklahoma.
One of the 50.
One of them. Well, yeah, one of the 50. But they showed this image of a husband and wife. The wife was like, "Hey, don't forget to replace the smoke alarms." And he had them on the counter. He's like, "I will. Don't worry about it." And he goes outside and he's playing catch with this kid. And as they're throwing the ball back and forth on the second throw, so he throws it to the kid throws it back, he throws it back. And when he throws it back, the ball drops and the kid disappears. And in the background, the house goes from normal to burnout. Right? And it was because he chose not to replace the smoke alarms in the home. And it was like, it was very dramatic. I was like, golly, gut check.
Attention to second throw.
Right? Just like boom, boom. And it went. And it, for us, it's like, like anticlimactic. And if you think about it on those, but it's a real sense. If you put it off, what matters most, you set priorities of things like playing fetch with your kids and things, but you never know the impact of what that's going to happen. And for me, going back to that man who died in there, I thought, like, I can remember really toting that level of responsibility. Myself and another guy from the Red Cross, we coordinated that event. We had teams that went out. Our goal was to get as many houses as we could. It lacked public education, but specifically it lacked targeted public education on what? Mobility related issues. This man had a medical condition that lacked mobility. And that day, his nurse, he had stage 4 cancer. And his nurse told him, "You don't need to stay home by yourself." And he chose to stay home by himself. Now, he made a conscious decision on his own, right? But the other part of that for me was that was the only saving grace that I had, was that day, little did I know what happened between January and October, right? His conditions, what people said, what they didn't say. But it was a big wake-up call to me is that the simple rubber stamp public education, hey, let's go in, let's do a smoke alarm canvas program. You don't know the impacts and the factors that people are under unless you slow down enough to take the time to ask those kind of things or be situationally aware. And that's where the program that you have, Doug, I love, because on that medical call, the mobility issues they have. Matt, if you're asking those questions, that is phenomenal, because the issues at hand. If they have hearing problems, if they have these kind of things, and your first due way better than anybody else. You'll know whether or not they have money problems or not, right? Whether or not they can financially, afford to replace those smoke alarms or not. So it's huge. Adam's been really quiet. I want to ask a question. Adam, you don't have as many residential on your base, if any at all, correct?
Yes, we do have some own base housing.
But those are all taken care of by contract through other like what do you call them? Like base maintenance or whatever, right?
Yes. In our area, a company comes in, they own the houses. The federal government owns the land. So these people contract the houses. If it's not filled up by military, then it's filled up by Section 8 people. That program.
On the base?
Yeah.
No, not on the base, but we have outside the gate.
Yeah.
We have property, and that's what that is. And that company had a choice to who do you want to respond, the federal government or do you want the city? So they opted for the city to respond. So the federal government gives them money to give to the city for the city to respond it. And we're first due. So we're still coming. We're still going to be the first ones there. And if we're not the first ones there for some reason, we're still going to show up and do a report. So, it's fraud, waste, and abuse. But still, we do respond out to
they got
maybe
a hotline
housing
for that.
So where I wanted to where I wanted to go with that was, I know for our military installations right here, they have a public education program. They much like that. The maintenance piece of this is a little different, right? Because I think it was on Nick's episode, a couple of episodes back, I was listening to that, and you guys talked about fire alarms and things of that nature. So those are pretty much run of the mill, right? Like if you have a problem, you put in a work order. It's different than out off of base, just because of how it works. There has to be this compliant piece as opposed to put in a work order. But for you guys, there's still that public education piece on those base housing. A cooking fire can happen just as easy on the installation as it can happen off of the installation.
Yeah, we still have a lot of fire ed classes for the occupants of the buildings throughout the base, the special teams and all that stuff. Our fire prevention team is phenomenal. We got a brand new chief, Spectre Mix. He's a very passionate guy. He knows the rules. He's rough around the edges, but he goes in there and he doesn't think about necessarily his number one priority is not the occupant's life. He cares about that, but he really truly thinks about us, the firefighters on that truck. And he's like, you don't supposed to have nothing in front of that electrical panel. Is it really going to cost somebody in that building's life? Maybe not, but the firefighters, yeah, we got to get to that. We could have problems with that. He really thinks about the firefighter truly a lot. And him and his team have done just phenomenal jobs. They do not get the recognition that they should. But, I mean, that's where it really all starts at.
Do you have barracks on your installation? Or Yeah.
We have barracks. We have commands that have 24-hour staffing, have people there.
And I would say that's probably a good paradigm, right? You have that young person.
Hold on. Most of our people listening don't know what that word means.
The good shift, a good bookends. Okay. How about we'll say bookends, right?
All right.
But like that's the two biggest differences, right? So when you look at the difference between, somebody who has a family and they're well established versus that person that's fresh out of, basic training and they don't know how to cook anything, right? But they've got a barrack and so they've got a microwave and they're throwing metal in it. Those kind of things are what's happening, right? And so when we talk about cooking fires, that's two totally different mindsets, right? One knows that it's a problem and it's accidental. One has no understanding at all. So, Matt, do y'all have universities and dorm rooms where you're at, or do y'all respond to that? Because that would be similar in my mind.
It's normal to cook a bag of popcorn for 10 minutes in the microwave, right?
Right, like just 10 minutes, right?
Those people.
I ran a fire alarm the other day. Actually, it came to the fire alarm. Lady in an assisted living facility, independent living, I think is what she was at. But anyway, she burned a waffle in her toaster because the last time she used it, she made 2 waffles, but she only ate 1. So when she put this waffle in, she just pushed the button, and the one that was already in it was already burnt. So she just made a mess. But I want to segue off of something that Adam said a minute ago.
That's my word.
I know what the hell a segue is, and I ain't talking about the scooter. I'm gonna make a paradigm. That's like a geometry term or some shit. You were talking about stuff in front of this hypothetical scenario, stuff in front of electrical panels. Do you guys do exit inspections at your places?
On our safety fire inspections, we do.
Just that, like the initial.
Yeah, just a safety fire inspection. We'll do exit. Yeah.
So every year, every district gets a certain amount of businesses in their district, and they have to check all their exits and that kind of thing. And that's, again, a good time to educate about, look, you can't have boxes in front of the door. You got to have this kind of lighting, blah, blah, blah. So another thing with that, Unkie, like you said, was not so much the inspector or whatever looking out for you guys. It's us looking out for us and taking that opportunity to educate. And maybe they'll tell their small business owners that, hey, you can't do this and that and this and that.
If we run a call at a local restaurant or something and we notice exit being blocked, like our priority is the patient. Yeah. Like we're not going to take that time to ream the manager that night.
Yeah, and it's the same.
Maybe Brian gets a little cold sweats on that comment, but
no,
we're not. We're not going to do that.
I mean, we do as a restaurant. You know that stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but they
I'm not saying they don't. I'm not saying they don't disregard it.
And that's the thing is they don't care, right? Like I got to a point as fire marshal, I realized that 90% of people. I realized this very early on, right? Like, and this is not a jab at custodians, right? But when I was doing school inspections, I would find more custodians asleep. But the fastest I ever saw a custodian move was when I showed up at a school, right? Because when I showed up at a school, they were trying to find administration to tell them that I was here so they could get on the walkie-talkie because they had a standing order that when the fire marshal shows up, whoa, everybody's got to move. Everybody's got to get everything cleaned up because if not, they get in trouble. Yeah. But when we would go around and they wouldn't know we were there, right? When the certain ones, we would find them asleep in places and, you know, whatever. They'd get in trouble in different ways. But that was the way that it was. And so what I'm trying to get at is that it was always about what can I get away with, right? Because of that, it'll never happen to me.
Can I push the
yes. And so kind of to Doug's point, I would tell people right out the gate, I would say, look, facts. Today's inspection, I've never been here, is going to be longer than normal, and it's probably going to have a lot of items on it. The goal of it is so that way, after this visit, any other time I come back, unless there's been a code change, it'll be quick, fast, and painless, right? Because if I can teach you what you need to do, you change the way that you do things, right? And I give you the understanding, hopefully that doesn't happen. Yeah. And so sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. I mean, I had certain people who were like, oh, this makes sense. I never forget, I had a newspaper editor. We wrote up, I don't know how many violations at the local place. And it got to a point where there was it's funny, Adam mentioned about the electrical panel because I gave the explanation of rewriting and relabeling the electrical panel. So that way the firefighters could know which breakers to cut on and off if they needed to use it. It was not about the maintenance guy, right? He knew which breaker to cut off for which. It was about if we had to respond. But what he told me was it finally took about 4 to 6 months for him to clear violations. He would send me something every now and again. Hey, can I get a 30-day extension? Can I get another 30-day? This is taking longer, whatever. I said, well, just show me justification. So he would send something from the electrician or whatever. And there was other violations. But when I finally came back, the maintenance guy says, hey, the editor wants to meet with you. So we sat down and he said, you know, Inspector Kelly, I want you to know I had a $30,000 decision to make after you left. And I was like, what do you mean? And now this is like 20 years ago, right? And I've had a lot of inspections since then that were cost a lot of people a lot more money. But back then, that was the first time I ever saw a figure that was that high. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, when you told us that we had to relabel our electrical panel and our electrician opened up the ceiling, the amount of junk wiring and wiring that went everywhere, we had to spend about $30,000 to have stuff rewired and traced. That cost me a part-time position, and I had to eliminate a position in my organization. I said, sir, that was never my intent. And he said, I know it wasn't your intent, nor did I ever tell you or did I blame you. He said, but here's the reality. I print for 5 papers, and newspaper is a dying breed. So if I have a fire and I lose all 5 of my markets, people aren't going to subscribe, and our newspaper is going to go under. You told me that this was the problem, and this is why, and if there was a fire, your guys couldn't do your job. And if you can't do your job, then I can't do mine, and if I can't do mine, everyone loses their job. And I was like, oh. And it kind of was an aha moment for me, right? Sitting there. This is a guy that on a Sunday can write a paper about the local jerk who came in and cost him $30,000. Right? He could write an editorial about me, but he didn't. He chose to take a high road.
You, Brian. That's the
well, no, but
thing.
It isn't
about you. It's about the state code. It's the fire code. All you're doing is this is why police officers get such a bad rap. Stop doing stupid shit, and they will have to yank you out of your fucking car and put you on the ground and put their knee against your back because you were being an idiot, right? I just took that to the extreme, but like you're just enforcing the code, man, to try to keep them safer.
100%. You and I know that, right? We agree. But it's always personal. And the reason why it's always personal is because the people before them never did their job, right? So when you have someone
they didn't enforce it correctly. Yeah.
Right. So when you have someone that comes in and does their job, but other people didn't before, it's, hey, it's never been a problem. Why is it a problem today?
Accountability.
Accountability. And so that's where it goes back to the public education piece, right? So whether you're checking smoke alarms on medical calls, you need to do it every time, right? If it's in base housing and it's a matter of at the barracks, you're checking for certain things, or on pre-planned walkthroughs, you're looking for things. That's that thing. And that's where I said you're 10 times better sitting there thinking outside of the box, because I'm telling y'all, I truly believe that the best resource that the fire department has is the firehouse kitchen table to solve the problems, right? That sometimes aren't our solutions to have, but we can fix them, right? Even when they're not ours. Yeah. And it puts us in more time. And it kind of goes back to what we said on the podcast with Maria, right? We fuss about how we don't have enough time to get our reps in for the fires to be good at training, yet we're still going out and doing these lift assist and medical calls and falls and false alarms. If we can get those things off of our plate, we can be good at becoming firemen again, right?
Yeah, I disagree. Only because those go away, we'll find some other way to fill the time. The Chiefs will fill the time with something else. Sorry, that's being pessimistic.
Well, and I won't completely disagree with that if you are in an organization that prioritizes things over fires. I
love that rebuttal. And the only thing I'll say is that the disconnect between being on an engine or a truck, being a lieutenant or a captain, as I am. I don't have lieutenants in my department, but the disconnect is immediate. Is absolutely, you get that phone call, hey, Mr. So-and-so, congratulations, you're a chief now. Like, boing, their brain turns off, and all of a sudden there's no such thing as 12 to 2, and we've got triple this, that, and the other. But I don't want to be negative. The only thing I wanted to add to the very end here, Brian, was the fire prevention stuff is super important, and it is tough for us in the field to go out and sell what maybe the business owners think is of a safety as snake oil, because of what you said. And you said, it's never going to happen to me, right? I mean, I've never had a fire. I just had a lady tell me the other day, we've been in here for 50 years, and her extinguisher hadn't been serviced since 2022. And I said, this is an annual inspection that needs to happen, my dear. And I walk into her closet and I see a piece of plastic from a packaging that was laying up against a fluorescent bulb. I said, what do you think about this? And she's like, "Ooh, that probably shouldn't be there." And I was like, "You're probably right. You probably need about 18 inches of space between the." And I told her about fuels and all this kind of stuff. But people don't see it because it doesn't happen to them. And the only thing that we're gaining any traction in this wildland world, because I live in a wild urban interface. I live in the WUI. I work in the WUI, and they see Palisades. They remember the Laguna fire that happened in '93 that will happen again. And that's the only reason we're getting traction, spending millions of dollars in my town to do fuel mitigation, and because of what they see has happened. When you go and do a local fire safety inspection, they're going, "Oh, it's never going to happen to me. Why do I have to pay this bill? Why do I have to change this? Why do I have to have an illuminated exit sign and all this bullshit?" Right? And it's tough. It's really tough for us to go in there, and you're trying to be the nice guy because we're firemen, right? And it's a tough one. And again, too, is my second thing is get out into the community and educate, really. Get the fire engine to your local schools. I'm talking to the firemen that are listening to this podcast, because that's a majority of who listens to our podcast is a bunch of firemen or want to be firemen, is encourage your guys to get out and do public education to the preschoolers, to the first graders, second graders. Teach them about, we have a program called EDITH, Exit Drills in the Home. Do you have a plan? I always give them homework. Go home and tell your parents, you guys got to have a plan. If your house catches on fire, you meet at a certain area. What do you do when there's an emergency? Call 911. Like if there's a house on fire, if you're on fire, what do you do? Stop, drop, and roll and go over all that great stuff.
Hold up. I'm going to say I'm 45 damn years old, and I ain't never in my life had to stop, drop, and roll. And I thought as a kid it would be a lot more popular than it is. And not once have I caught myself on fire and had to stop, drop, and roll. So
the good news is,
while I'm mildly disappointed in that, I mean, whatever.
Since we're talking about stuff like that, what about quicksand? Right?
Okay, Indiana Jones made me think that it was everywhere.
Yeah, it's going to be a big problem, and it's not.
I bet you've all used that extra pair of underwear in your suitcase, though. And we'll just leave it at that. So, anyways, with that, we'll close it out. So, Mama always didn't give bad advice.
I just repacked my go bag in the engine the other day.
So, with that, I thank you for that. I want to do a matter of personal privilege and close this out. I shared on my personal page.
Personal privilege.
A matter of personal privilege. I was lucky enough to be voted on the International Fire Marshals Association Board of Directors.
Matt. Shit, hold on.
What are we doing here? Okay. So
now you may go.
Oh, wait, now maybe this is the right one.
Yeah, maybe that one. But the purpose of that is everything that we've just talked about, right? And it's an international board that serves under NFPA. I know that a lot of our listeners fuss about NFPA. And what I remind folks, I was just talking to some folks at FDIC about it, is NFPA's sole purpose is to bring public sector, private sector, and at large to come together to do elective standards, right? These are not mandatory standards. They're elective standards. Remember, even on a fire truck, if you don't want the lime green and red chevrons and you want to do another one, you can sign a waiver on that. It's okay. It ain't no big deal. So those are elective standards. If your organization doesn't want you to have certain types of PPE, you can do it if you want to.
Can you make a recommendation for my department to stop making yellow fire engines?
They ain't ripe yet. They're not ripe yet.
I want red and black and gray. Thank you.
Whatever. So what I'm getting at is that I'm very honored to serve with this. I'm literally serving with people, amazing people from all over the country, and I'm super stoked. But to those who thought enough of me to allow me to serve, thanks. So that's all I wanted to say.
Hey, here's to you, Chief.
Hey, that's awesome. If I had any beer left, I'd cheers you. But yeah, that's phenomenal.
I'll take a sip of water.
Drink too much.
Well, it's all gone.
I know.
But it's an important thing.
I'm fucking with you, Ted.
It's an important thing. I mean, right now in North Carolina, we're fighting legislation for single exit stairwell in an 8-story building in Type 5 construction.
Whoa.
Okay. Yep. That's being proposed. That's just one bill out of 8. Jesus. So when you start talking about things that are problems, it's a firefighter safety issue. It's a citizen issue. It's a million different reasons of an issue. And there were legislators who thought it was important enough to write a bill to allow it to bypass the code adoption process and say, all in the sake of affordable housing, we think this is a good idea. And the fire service is banding together here in North Carolina on this bill as well as other ones and saying, nope, it's not a good idea for anyone, the public, for firefighters, for anyone. This is not good. So educating and then advocating, that's what we do, right? Whether it's firefighter issues or anything else. So anyway, thank y'all. Appreciate it. Adam, send us out, buddy.
Roll it, Gigi.
Roll it, Gigi.
Before you leave, hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and give these firemen a huge thumbs up. Also, make sure you check out thecoolfireman.com for more. Thanks!